Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Really appreciate having this young lady on. Her name is Ariana Jacob. She's the CEO and founder of Influences, and she's a former talent agent for people that you probably have heard about. Ariadna, sorry.
You can call me Ari, by the way.
Okay, we'll call you Ari because I think Ariadna is a great name, but it's not as usual
it's a tongue
to
twister.
me. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like my last name, Pagliarulo. But first of all, nice to see you face to face. We follow each other on social. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So
Thank you for having me.
When I say Charli D'Amelio, when I say Addison Rae, younger people watching and listening right now will know exactly who they are. I think Charli's got 152 million followers on TikTok. Addison Rae is close to 90 million. So these two young ladies, you found them? Really?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So when TikTok turned into TikTok, before it was Musical.ly, I noticed that there was all these new faces sprouting up. And before, most of the influencers were on YouTube or on Instagram. And I just saw kind of a new generation of these, young, and I say young, but some of them were like 18, 19, 20. To me, they're kids.
Right.
They're learning in this industry. And so I was on there and I was just looking at some, and I could tell which ones. I have this thing, I guess it's a talent of mine, of just seeing who I think is going to be a big star one day.
Right.
I don't know. And I saw these people, and if you can imagine, TikTok was kind of like a news channel, or not a news channel, like a channel that you watch on TV where like the same 10 people are on it over and over again, because there's millions of people watching, but only a few people creating content. You have to be kind of voyeuristic to make a video. And if you think about it, back before it was, you post pictures on Instagram, but you're not like acting or making a funny video or telling a story. You have to have a little bit of something, to do that. And so what I was noticing is that it was the supply and demand situation. I'm like, there's, people want to see these stars that they keep seeing over and over again, and nobody's really helping those people. So it's almost like I signed a bunch of, little ponies, and then they sprouted unicorn wings and became super social media stars. I think Charli D'Amelio, she makes like $17 million a year now. So
crazy.
And back then, I mean,
and you're getting what, 20% of that?
Between 10, 15, 20%, depending on who it was. Once somebody gets pretty big, you want to 20% is a lot, but when somebody's not making anything and you're spending a lot of time on them, 20% is not that bad, because to get a $500 deal.
Oh, no.
$100, what I mean?
No, I'm with you. No, I get it exactly. So was there a need for TikTok at a time because Vine went away? And as you said, sort of Facebook and Instagram weren't doing video right yet. They didn't quite get it. YouTube was long form. There wasn't the short sort of
everybody
thing.
copied. Instagram copied TikTok, and so did YouTube. But I think that there was just, if you remember back in like 2018, 2019, everything that you would see on Instagram stories was like somebody that was on The Bachelor being like, swipe up to see my skincare routine and buy.
Yeah.
And so I think people, young people have been advertised to since they were very young. And so everybody can smell the BS when it's coming at you. So I think TikTok was more fun. It was just it wasn't direct response advertising. It was just like watching some TV. And so the advertisers were trying to figure out how do we activate on TikTok? And because I had a big time marketing background, I'd worked in advertising most of my career. They came to me and they were like, okay, we have $1 million. How should we spend that? Who should we spend it on? And if you think about it, this is 2019, and then right at the beginning of 2020, then the pandemic happens, and all these people in entertainment, music, talent agents, people that are in TV and movies, they're not making any money. The only people making money are people that like Instagram and TikTok people.
And live streamers, right?
Yeah. So I didn't realize it at the time, but I had a pretty big target on my back, considering that I think some people realize, wow, these TikTokers are going to be worth a lot of money. And so, so that's basically, I was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And,
but then,
I ran into some trouble.
Right. Well, you became a target, as you said. People wanted a piece of what you were doing, and they did it in a dastardly way. Her name is Ariana Jacob, and it's Ari. Just going to call you Ari. CEO, founder of Influences. Go to eldermillenni.com. Is that what we're doing? Elder, MILLENNI.com. Eldermillenni.com. Her merch site is littlemissjacob.com. All right. So everything's going swimmingly. You are like blazing a path. I remember pretty famously, Ninja, the big-time gaming streamer, said Charli D'Amelio is growing that fast because she's growing that fast. And that made sense to me because people want to know, why is this train going so quickly, through the station? What's going on that I'm missing? We should jump on board that train. And they did. So her numbers were growing because her numbers were growing. And the content was really, really good. It was wholesome.
Yeah, wholesome.
It wasn't
exactly.
controversial. It was fun to watch.
You don't know who she is. She's like, at the time, she was like 16. I think she's over 18 now. But
right.
And Addison Rae was in a Super Bowl commercial recently. I actually booked Charli D'Amelio on a Super Bowl commercial. She was on a Sabra commercial in 2020. And she's like just this all-American girl, and she comes from a nice family. And I think, young people, they don't want to grow up to be. When I was younger, I remember watching The Social Network, and I wanted to be like, Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know if I want to be him in that story, but you know what I mean? I looked up to people like on those entrepreneurial stories. And I think now the young people, they look up to people like Charli D'Amelio because they can see the path. How I can see my path of becoming like her, because she's a regular kid and became famous because she's a dancer and whatever. Yeah. And the algorithm really favored Charli because she was a dancer. So when you go in the beginning, TikTok was all about dancing. So you would go on there, and in order to learn a dance, you have to watch it over and over again. And so what happened is the algorithm noticed that people watching the videos over and over again
what a good point.
To learn the dance, and then the algorithm shot her through the roof. And then I think that TikTok used her as sort of a marketing ploy because they're like, oh, here's this all-American girl, and she's bringing so much attention to the app. It feels wholesome. It's dancing. Some of Addison Rae was dancing with her mom and dad. So it felt family friendly and fun, and people were stuck in their houses. They couldn't get out. Remember, there was the lockdown. So
that's what you did. You jumped, you got an account on TikTok is what people did. So let me ask you this. It sounds like you were well on your way to being the Mark Zuckerberg of talent scouts.
I had a bit of a monopoly
talent agencies. Well, right. What happens? Why aren't you still with Charli and Addison? I mean, because I know that your business was attacked and that you just were very successful in defending yourself. But what happened?
So if you're not aware of like how talent agencies work, I didn't really realize it to the full extent. But basically, if you're represented by one of the big talent agencies like UTA, CAA, WME,
right,
what it gives you is access, right? Because now you have access to their whole roster of talent. So let's say you're Charli D'Amelio and you love J-Lo.
Yes.
They were going to find a way to get you with J-Lo because maybe they represent her, or maybe they have friends. Remember the show Entourage? I mean, it really is like that show, and it is that cutthroat. But when you talk about influencers, it was like the Wild West. And so at first, it was really interesting. This journalist who worked at the New York Times, who was sort of making her career as a tech journalist, somebody that covered social media when nobody else did. She actually wrote a story about the Hype House and wrote how about all these TikTokers that lived, or they didn't all live in the house, but they all collaborated together and they all were exploding at the same time, kind of off of Charli D'Amelio's fame. If you collaborated with Charli, then you became a big deal. And so I represented 5 of the influencers that were in that house. And I thought it was odd because she wrote an article, a glowing article about UTA, which is one of the talent agencies. And she didn't disclose that she was represented by them. It was titled like, this agency is signing all the influencers. And I just thought it was a little bit weird. And then she did an article about how the Hype House is like the gold rush of TikTok. It was a gold rush of times, and it was at that time. But it was really odd. I managed 5 of the people in that house, and they told me not to go to the photo shoot with New York Times. And I think it started back then. I think but who knows? That's me speculating.
If we don't want to say her name, that's fine. I don't want to give her publicity.
Oh, no, I don't care. Her name's Taylor Lorenz.
To call her a journalist is a real stretch. She's not. I made my living as a journalist for a very long time. She's been at odds with libs of TikTok and Haya Raichik for a long time as well. She's not. Last night, she showed off pictures of her at the Pornhub Awards Gala with a mask on. So there's something wrong with her, in my opinion. So how does?
But you have to remember,
they squeezed you out on purpose?
In 2020, she was still pretty powerful. Like she could still write an article in the New York Times and take out a business. So yes, today she's a clown. She's a joke. Everybody laughs at her.
Yes.
I think if she wrote an article about you, that would be like going on, you would frame it and put it up because that means you're the coolest.
Right.
But, back then she really, she was
so
really
she had the
some
power. She had the power. So
I know that she ended up writing an article.
You said that she ruined your business. How?
So after I had lost some clients to UTA, I was thinking, oh, well, it's just because I'm newer in the game or whatever. But a lot of people wanted to be represented by me because I represented Charli. So it didn't even matter that Charli had gone off to UTA. Everybody still wanted to be represented by me. And the way that I worked with brands is that I was very fair with the brands. Sometimes when you talk to a talent agent, they'll just say, okay, it's going to be $50,000 for one post.
Right.
What I would do with the brand, since they were new to TikTok, is I would say, okay, what do you want to get out of this? Like, I was very consultative with the brand, and I wanted to make sure that if the brand did one deal with one of my talent clients, that they would come back and do more deals because it worked. I didn't want them to pay a lot of money on a one-off and it didn't move the needle, and then that talent gets a bad reputation.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So. The brands liked me because I was working with them that way, and the talent liked me because I was getting them deals. Well, who didn't like me was obviously the talent agencies. And, I couldn't figure out at first why Taylor Lorenz didn't like me, but ultimately I found out that Taylor Lorenz is represented by UTA, the agency that ended up signing my clients. Wow. And so she starts to reach out. Luckily, I had some friends in media, and they were like, something's weird about why she wants to chat with you. So I had my attorney respond to her. And, a lot of times people say, don't even respond to these people. But I think I had some chutzpah. I mean, I was just like, I don't have anything to hide. We should be able to tell them everything. And, my attorney was like, listen, we're going to give them everything that makes sense. There's some situations where, for example, she asked pre-publication, she said, did you pay these clients on time? And of course I had paid them on time. But in order to prove that, I would have to show her receipts and invoices from big Fortune 500 companies that we were working with, which I had signed non-disclosure agreements, which basically means I can't talk about these deals.
Right,
so if a big company had paid the influencer late and I go and tell the New York Times that, then I could be sued for breach of my NDA with the big company. So she kind of put me between a rock and a hard place. We told her everything that we could. But ultimately, the worst thing she wrote in the article is that she wrote that I leaked nude images of my client for revenge because they were trying to leave the company. Now, what actually happened is she said, oh, you've been alleged to leaked photos. And my attorney said, no, this is 100% defamatory. And she wrote back, well, nobody's alleging that Ari leaked them publicly. And so she had already written that. And then she wrote in the article, Ari leaked my nudes, as a quote from one of the things.
Oh, my goodness.
Ari leaked. So, and by the way, what actually happened was another manager, I was managing a house with a bunch of TikTok people, a guy's house and a girl's house. And one of the 25-year-old guys in one of the guy houses, somebody texted me and said, it's been alleged on a big Telegram forum with 100,000 people or more that this guy is sending nudes to a 14-year-old girl. So I thought it was my ethical and moral duty to look into that, which I did. I reached out to an internal person that was under a non-disclosure and that worked for me, kind of like an HR type of consultant that I had. And I talked directly to the guy and I said, did you do this? And then I have text messages from the 25-year-old guy saying, oh no, somebody broke into my iCloud account and leaked my nudes everywhere. This is an attack on me. So, but they're going to write in the New York Times. I mean, this is printed in the paper that I'm some kind of witch.
And the quote was that you did it.
It said, Ari leaked my nudes and sent them to business partners and people in my house.
It's Ariadne Jacob, Ari Jacob. Go and check out eldermillenny.com, or littlemissjacob.com. Follow her everywhere. She's on social media. I just want to, because we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I want to get right to the meat and potatoes. They allege something that you clearly didn't do. I know that you had a positive result in your lawsuit. You say that they ruined your business. Do you believe in your heart of hearts that the intention from the beginning was she's done amazingly, but we don't want to pay her anymore. We want her out of the way. Let's squeeze her out and let those big named alphabet agencies that you mentioned earlier, let them get their hands on the talent. Is that what happened basically?
I think that's overnight I had DocuSign agreements that got canceled, big, things I had been working on for a long time. And, and they just, what happens when people cancel you, I think, in the media is that what it does to your inner confidence, you know what I mean? Because you get this shame put on you that's not, you don't deserve it because you didn't do it, but you still feel the shame. And it's such a weird thing because when I would go into a meeting to start a new deal, start something new, I would be like, well, what should I do? Should I tell them about this article, or what if they Google me? And if I don't tell them, then are they going to think I'm hiding something? Right. So it does something to your psyche that's not right. And so that's why, so I ended up, it was very hard to sue the New York Times. The New York Times hasn't lost a defamation lawsuit since the 1960s.
Wow.
I was out of money, and I'm really proud of myself that, one, I even found an attorney to take my case on. Then I went on Tucker Carlson. I had some advice to not go on there because, remember, I was in Hollywood, and it's a liberal place in Hollywood. And so if you go on a place like Tucker Carlson, a lot of people might not like you. But I had actually very liberal mentors that said, no, you got to go on there and tell your story, because this isn't even about politics. It's just about right and wrong. And if they can do it to me, a little nobody, I was born in Mexico City. I came here as a little girl, and I always had a dream to be an entrepreneur. And for them to do that to me, think about it, they could do it to anybody. And I think it's important to expose that. And so the lawsuit took about 4 years. We finally got to the point where the judge said that the lawsuit could even go forward, because it's very hard, and rightfully so, right? Because we're trying to protect the First Amendment and your right to speech. But at the same time, I think people just need to be aware of what the media is capable. And when I was younger, I used to look up to the New York Times of, if they did a positive article about me, it would be framed and on my wall, because it's sort of this legacy paper that you remember. And I just remember when all this happened thinking, gosh, if that type of organization is willing to do this kind of stuff, then it's hard to trust anything that goes out, you know?
No, listen, Ari, I'm glad that you got a positive result. I'm glad that you're rebuilding things. I'm glad you're doing your own podcast now. You look great. You sound great.
Thank you.
And I've seen the content. It's very, very good. Hopefully people will go and follow you everywhere. It's Ariadna, Ariadna. Jacob is her last name. Go and follow her on all the social media. ElderMillennial.com is the link that'll get you to her YouTube channel, plus LittleMissJacob.com. We've got to do this again, because I want you to really give advice to young people who think they could become an overnight star on social media, but we're frankly out of time. Can we do it again?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to go look at all your TikToks now. We're going to talk about your TikToks.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's Ariadna Jacob. Thank you very much, and we're back after this. Stay right here.